It began like any ordinary Thursday evening. I'd wrapped up work earlier than usual and decided to surprise my wife, Emily, with dinner. Lately, though, she'd seemed different, distant, distracted. She stayed up late, phone always in hand, her laughter reserved for whoever was on the other end of those endless texts. I kept telling myself it was just work pressure, that I was reading too much into things. But as I drove home that night, a faint unease stirred inside me, one that refused to quiet down. When I pulled into the driveway, her car wasn't there. The house was dark, cold, and strangely empty. My stomach nodded. On instinct, I opened a location-sharing app we'd installed years ago, back when trust between us was something we never questioned. Her little dot blinked from a bar across town. I wanted to believe it was harmless. Maybe she was with friends, blowing off steam after a long week. But that tiny voice in my head kept whispering otherwise. I grabbed my keys again and drove off, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles went white. The bar was dim and cozy, the air filled with murmurs, laughter, and the faint strains of jazz. I saw her almost instantly. Emily. Her hair fell softly over her shoulders, her face lit by candlelight, and by the company of a man sitting close beside her. His hand rested over hers, as if it belonged there. My heart stopped. I stood still, watching as he leaned in and whispered something that made her smile, that same tender smile that used to be mine. She didn't flinch, didn't glance around nervously, didn't even look ashamed. She just looked happy. That hurt more than anything. For years, I've been her partner, through sickness, debts, dreams, and quiet nights when we held on to each other like the world outside didn't exist. And there she was, tossing it all away for the thrill of someone new. I didn't need to hear her confess. I saw everything I needed to see when her hand slid up his thigh. My first instinct was to march over, demand an explanation, cause a scene if I had to. But instead, something inside me broke. Not with anger, but with realization. I no longer needed her words. She had already spoken through her actions. So I walked to the bar, sat down right beside them, ordered a whiskey, neat. She didn't even notice at first, too caught up in her little fantasy. When she finally turned and saw me, the color drained from her face. "David," she whispered, her voice barely holding steady. The man straightened awkwardly, looking between us. I lifted my glass slowly and said, "Didn't mean to interrupt. Just thought I'd stop by." Silence felt like a heavy curtain. She tried to speak, but no excuse could fill that void. I reached into my pocket, slipped off my wedding ring, and placed it gently next to her glass. The sound of metal touching glass was sharp and final. "David, wait," she began, her hand trembling. I stepped back, shaking my head. "No need to explain. You already did." I left $20 by my drink, turned and walked out. She called after me, but I didn't turn around. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel trapped or angry. I felt free. Outside, the night air was cool, crisp, almost cleansing. Each step toward my car felt lighter than the one before. I realized then how long I'd been trying to hold together something she had stopped caring about long ago. Loving someone who doesn't value that love is its own kind of slow death. As I drove aimlessly through quiet streets, I thought about all the nights I'd ignored my instincts. Eventually, I stopped at the park where we'd had our first date. I sat there, staring at the spot where she once told me she'd never hurt me. The irony stung, but it didn't break me. My phone buzzed again and again, her name flashing with each desperate call, each pleading message. I didn't answer. Some betrayals don't deserve an audience. By morning, I blocked her number and called my lawyer. The divorce papers were ready within hours. No fights, no long speeches, just silence and signatures. I left the house with only my clothes, my old guitar, and a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. People later asked why I didn't confront her, why I didn't make a scene. The truth was simple. She wasn't worth it. I didn't need revenge or closure. Just distance. Time passed. I started running again, traveling, rediscovering pieces of myself that had been buried beneath her neglect. Sometimes when I walk past a bar and hear the clink of glass, I remember that night. not with pain, but with peace. That quiet sound of a ring hitting glass wasn't the end of my marriage. It was the sound of me reclaiming my dignity. She thought she broke me that night, but in truth, she freed me. And as I walked away from that bar, I didn't lose a wife. I found myself.